Hi, it's John. I'm modelling a Ferguson classic tractor in Blender, and in this video I'll run through my approach to modelling the differential cover. It's quite a complex shape which is a bit daunting to start with, but when I broke it down into steps it became fairly straightforward. So first I started with a block out, which you can see here, and the goal here was to match the photoscan model, so I've overlaid the two here. I was really just trying to get the right shape and proportions so that I had a good basis to start from. Once I was happy with the shape, I focused on figuring out the optimal number of divisions for the spherical part. You can see here that these radial tabs don't actually align very well with the edge flow. There needs to be more divisions. So it makes sense to remodel this and increase the number of divisions so to make it easier to integrate these tabs in. And that's what I did in the next stage. So you can see here I've increased the number of divisions and I was able to extrude the tabs straight out of this mesh without needing to join two separate meshes together. I know they're rectangular here, but it's easy enough to convert these to semicircular shape later. The other thing I did at this point was rework the mesh so that it formed a boundary around this top bracket here. And the reason I did this was to make it easier to integrate the two parts together. So I used the Boolean modifier to join the two parts, and by arranging the mesh in this way, it just meant that the edge flow of the two components matched well. So after I'd done that and joined these two meshes together like this, I then did exactly the same thing for this bottom plate here and for the oil cover, which you can see here. So just by using the edge slide tool and the knife tool, I was able to rework the mesh so that the different meshes would all join together in a sensible way. And once I'd joined everything together to make one complete mesh, I then used the bevel modifier to create holding edges. And the way I did this was by creating a vertex group, which I could then add and remove vertices from, and that would non-destructively update the bevel and let me see how the thing looked. And once I was happy with the vertices I'd chosen, I applied this bevel modifier. At this point, the bevel required a little bit of a rework. It never works out perfectly, and there's normally a few little shading errors. So by using the join tool, the knife tool, edge slide tool, you can tweak it until you resolve any of these shading errors and you're happy with the sharpness of the different edges. It was at this point that I added the holes to the mesh, and this was done in exactly the same way that I added the bottom plate and the top mounting brackets. I simply moved vertices around until it aligned with the geometry of the new part that I was bringing in. And for this part here, using the loop tool, circle tool was particularly useful. And to create the holes, you could either use the Boolean modifier. I think what I actually did was just deleting the faces that correspond to where the holes are, and then bridging edge loops to create the holes. That's quite a neat way of doing it. And then at that stage, really the last thing to do is to fine tune the mesh, slide vertices, use the knife tool to optimize the edge flow a little bit more, just until you're happy with the way the thing looks. So I spent quite a lot of time on this. You might see that I added some additional vertices to these tabs here just to make them a little bit rounder. But overall, I'm quite happy with the way that this part turned out. And if we look at the differential assembly as a whole, I think it all goes together quite nicely. So yeah, that's it. I hope that gave you a good overview of how I modelled this part. I'd be keen to learn if you would approach this problem in a different way. So let me know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching.